Real quick before we jump into the video, again, like yesterday, though we didn't really talk about World War II as a whole, I let you guys know about some Twitch Prime loot that is available right now for World War II. And it's still available. I just want to give you guys, once again, another heads up. If you guys didn't see it or you didn't really care too much for it, since it wasn't necessarily a World War II video yesterday, but a little bit of an announcement of World War II within a Modern Warfare 2 video. Whatever the case, I just want to let you guys know about it here, a little bit more focused in the sense of World War II. But for those of you guys that have Twitch Prime, you can now get a heroic uniform bribe and 2 rare supply drops as a part of Twitch Prime loot for this most recent offering. If you have Twitch Prime and your account is already linked, all you have to do is go to your mail station and check that out. You can just go in and simply grab it like you would your armory credits. And then again, you have a uniform bribe, which is a heroic uniform, no dupes, so you should not get anything that you already have. And then the final other 2 items out of that aren't dupe protected, but still a nice little offering of a free supply drop. Then you have those 2 rare ones as well for free. So check that out if you guys have not done so already. If you guys, once again, need to link your accounts, I'll link that down there in the description below where you can go to claim it. But other than that, just want to let you guys know, back to regular scheduled content starting right now. So last week, we ended up getting a World War II update in the sense of some things that changed about in the mechanics, but also some weapons got tuned overall. If you guys remember, we ended up getting the MP40, the FG42, the SVT40, the M1A1, the Gewehr 43, the M30 Luftwaffe drilling, and the toggle action all had various nerfs and buffs granted throughout, depending what they needed to be adjusted by. So right after that patch went live, I ended up doing a class setup of 3 different classes from those selections of weapons, those 7 weapons, in which we talked about some best class setups to play around with these weapons after the update, because once again, some were changed in some dramatic fashion, some not so much. But in keeping in line with a little bit more of that, I want to give you guys 3 more class setups here for this one to kind of roll out and finish out these most recent updates to the weapons and give you guys little updated versions of the classes that I run. So unfortunately, we're going to be missing out on the toggle action still, but that's one that I might roll into another class setup if you need to see something like that. But today we're going to be talking about the M30 Luftwaffe drilling, the SVT40, and the FG42. So jumping right into the class setups, let's start out with the FG42, because this is probably the one that is the least changed in the sense of, because we've covered it before, this is something that I still run relatively very similar in build to that class setup. But this class setup is kind of built to counter the little bit of the nerf of the FG42. If you guys remember, we did say that there was a very minuscule nerf to the fire rates of the FG42, in which, once again, you don't really notice it unless you watch a frame-by-frame comparison to the point where it comes down to only the last few shots are mismatched in the sense that they don't match up directly. So it really is probably just a hair of a time, but still, nonetheless, to counter this, we're gonna be using some of the stuff in the class setup. But infantry, I run on this for extra magazines, that strafing speed, which is, of course, always crucial, I think, for rifle play. And of course, that extra attachment slot, like we say all the time, primed is my best friend, but infantry, that extra attachment slot might be my second best friend. But as for the FG42, I run something, firstly, that I think you can totally switch out, but I've just enjoyed it lately for whatever reason. The reflex sight is one attachment that I've run on it. Then I also have high caliber, extended mags, and rapid fire. Now, the reflex sight is totally preference. You don't need it. If I were to, say, put anything else on there, it'd probably be a steady aim, because there are some scenarios where I think this can be a decent hip fire weapon up close if you have the right adjustments made for it. But high caliber, as always, once again, is massive for headshot lethality. Definitely crucial in the sense of being able to subtract 1 total shot away from your gunfight if you land any headshot in that. Extended mags is nice because the FG42 base magazines, I feel, are a little bit too small for my liking. And then the rapid fire is where, once again, we kind of counteract that base FG42 fire rate nerf. This is something in which, though it's still, if you were to compare it to the FG42 from last week with rapid fire, it'd still be a hair slower, but in the grand scheme of things, it's the best way to kind of counterbalance that slight nerf to the base fire rate as of now. So then we end up running, once again, primed. That's the only class, I promise, in this setup video that we have with primed on it, and the machine pistol with extended mags and a lethal of a frag grenade, as per usual. As you guys probably know by now, the secondaries and the lethal/tacticals are pretty much all the same for a lot of what I run. There is some deviation here at this one with the class setup for the M30, but we'll get to that in a second. But that's the class setup for the FG42. Once again, just want to get that one out of the way because we've done this one, we've talked about the FG before, and it's not really the main focus, but I wanted to give you guys a class setup because it was adjusted in this most recent patch. Now, the next weapon I want to talk about is the SVT40, which, as of the most recent update, buffed the recoil to make it a little bit more manageable, but also nerfed the hip fire spread to match the M1 Garand in the sense of not making it such a killer close quarters, because for those of you guys that may not play around with this one, it is very similar to a lot of the properties of the M1. And of that is the 2-shot kill radius. That's something in which you have to be at a very long distance before it becomes something that is not a 2-shot. So if you were to have a very quick and easy way to get a kill at this, say by hip firing in close quarters, it becomes something that would be a little bit unbalanced. So that was something that was adjusted here for this one, but this class setup is going to play a little bit on the strengths of infantry, but also give us a little bit more of a mobile presence as well. So again, we said we have infantry with this. I love the extra mags, I love the strafing speed, I love the extra attachment slot. And then we have on this, I run a variance of the OAO, and there's a reason for that, in that being the sense that I like the iron sights on this more so than the base SVT. But if you guys don't have that one, you might want to adjust accordingly if you don't like the iron sights as well. But for the sake of it, this variant has afforded me the ability to once again not need any sort of optic on it, so I have quick draw, high caliber, and rapid fire on this one. A little bit of a precaution as well too, sometimes I'll throw on extended mags instead of quick draw, depending on how I feel. If I want to get a little bit more up close and personal and a little more rushy, I'll put the quick draw on, simply because if you want to get your gun up quicker in a fight, quick draw does help in that aspect. High caliber, of course, once again, helping with that headshot lethality. I think it is absolutely crucial to have on every single rifle. That's just me. You might have a different personal preference on it, but I really enjoy that sort of extra added damage that it affords if you can land a headshot. And then rapid fire, I'm not a huge fan of the way that the SVT's base fire rate cap is. It was very similar to what the M1A1 is like, in the sense that it's a weapon that needs to be uncontrolled. And the fire rate cap seemed a little bit too restrictive for my taste, so rapid fire allows that to be freed up a little bit, and you can have a little bit more rapid fire added in on top of it. Now, for the basic training we run on this one, it is hustle, simply because, once again, I'd like to be mobile, but this one, because of the mobility of the weapon itself, it actually has a rather high mobility compared to other rifles. This is one that I like to be a little bit more mobile with and go on the run a little more with. So hustle is the basic training we use here so that we can reload on the fly and reposition if needed in a pinch situation, but also not have to really sacrifice the ability to have our weapon ready for another gunfight. That's something that I really do believe helps out in a lot of the situations I encounter with this weapon in particular. And then finally, we have the secondary and the lethal of, well, you guessed it, the machine pistol with extended mags and the frag grenade to try and flush out an enemy if I know exactly where they are or the relative location of them. So that rounds out our rifle play with a little bit more of a mobile style here with this one, but then we move over into shotgun play. And I'll be totally honest with you, I think this is the first class setup that I've ever done for shotguns in this game, and maybe even class setups overall, because I'm not the biggest fan of shotguns in Call of Duty, but this was one that I was trying to do a little bit of the challenges for Chrome with, and this patch happened anyway, so I was like, well, you know what, let's give it a go. So this is one that you might be able to switch some things out here more so than other class setups that we end up doing, but for this class setup, it seemed to work well for me, and I'm hoping it reciprocates and becomes something that works well for you. But we end up running Expeditionary on the M30 just so it fits standard with the shotgun classification. And of course, I really do believe that this thing is way better with the incendiary shells compared to that of the standard shells. And as well, it offers you a few extra shots if you plan on outliving your opponents and being in those pinch situations, but staying alive the whole time, because the base amount of ammo that you end up having for the M30 is not a lot. I think it's 10 in reserve and 2 in the chamber, so those Expeditionary 4 extra incendiary shells do come in handy. As for the weapon itself though, we end up running quick draw and then advanced rifling on this, so that we end up having a little bit more of an increase to that damage range and the potential that it has to be able to get those longer shots, but also quick draw to be able to get our weapon up in a pinch situation. This is not something that I would say to try and challenge somebody with a rifle, maybe SMG play, but play at close quarters as much as possible. CQC is what shotguns are for, and that's where it really thrives. So anywhere else, it's going to have a little bit of a tricky situation, and therefore I wouldn't necessarily deviate from the amount of engagements you might want to take. As for the basic training we end up running on this one, well, that's hustle, because once again, we're in close quarters, we're in tight situations, and if we have people on top of us, well, hustle is something you really want to have so you can reload faster and also on the go. And one thing that I absolutely love with hustle on the Expeditionary shotguns, and it's something that maybe I'm just totally crazy, but I absolutely hate if I don't have hustle, having to slow down at the end of each life instead of jumping right into the action so that I can reload the incendiary shells, or rather load them in beforehand. Because if you guys remember back to the beta, we actually had the ability to have them in our weapon as we spawned up instead of having to load them every single time. But now that that is no longer the case, Hustle allows me to get back into the action as fast as possible, but also have those incendiary shells ready to go so that as soon as I get there, I can pop a few off. Now again, as to close this out, the secondary and the lethal, well, machine pistol with extended mags and a frag grenade, but the one thing that does a little bit deviate is that we do have a tactical at our disposal thanks to Expeditionary, which I do use from time to time, and especially if I know somebody is relatively close to me and I either need to reload or I need to regen some health, whatever it may be, it is nice to have the safety of being able to stun them and then get off to wherever I may be, or to be able to pick them off if I decide to use it on the offensive end. So that said, that is our 3 class setups here though with this one. Once again, trying to round out a little bit of the weapons that were updated as of last week. And again, some are some stuff that I'm not necessarily used to. That being maybe the M30 here. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the class setups though, and I want to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. And of course, if you guys want to also tweet me your results over on Twitter, if you guys end up checking these out, I always love hearing your thoughts on these. And if you guys end up trying them out, I love hearing the results that you have with them. So feel free to let me know over on Twitter, or if you guys want to, let me know down there in the comment section down below. That's totally cool as well. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding World War II. Best class setups, tips, tricks, news, information, updates, all that good stuff. We got you covered here up on the channel, so if any of it interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get content outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram as well, trying to get a little bit more active over there, so if you guys want to follow on that front, that's totally cool, and that link is as well in the description. But all that said and out of the way, hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day. Mine is an espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.